A group of Russian dissidents who crossed the border and attacked Russian towns in a daring raid have returned to Ukraine with a captured Russian armored vehicle as a trophy. The fighters, who call themselves the Belgorod Liberation Army, say they are fighting against President Vladimir Putin's regime and supporting Ukraine's sovereignty. The raiders, who wore Ukrainian flags and insignia, appeared in a parade in Sumy province, where they were greeted by cheering crowds and Ukrainian officials. They claimed they had killed dozens of Russian soldiers and destroyed several military vehicles during their incursion. However, their version of events did not match the official explanation given by Kiev, which said the fighters were acting on their own and had no connection to the Ukrainian government or military. Kiev also denied any involvement in the raid, which it said was a provocation by Moscow to justify further aggression. The raiders, who said they were former Russian soldiers and civilians who had defected to Ukraine, admitted they had received some assistance from Ukrainian volunteers and local residents, but insisted they were not part of any formal structure. They said they had planned and executed the raid by themselves, using their own weapons and vehicles. They also said they had acted in response to Russia's ongoing military buildup near the border and its support for separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine. They said they wanted to show that Russia was not invincible and that Ukrainians were ready to defend their land. The raiders said they had targeted Belgorod, a city in western Russia that was part of Ukraine until 1954, when it was transferred to Russia by Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. They said they considered Belgorod to be historically Ukrainian and hoped to liberate it from Russian occupation. They also said they had attacked other towns and villages along the border, where they claimed they had encountered resistance from Russian forces and pro-Russian militias. They said they had exchanged fire with their enemies and inflicted heavy casualties on them. The raiders said they had managed to capture a Russian BTR-80 armored personnel carrier, which they drove back to Ukraine. They said they had also seized some weapons and ammunition from the Russians. The raiders said they were proud of their achievement and vowed to continue their fight against Putin's regime. They said they hoped their raid would inspire other Russians to join them and support Ukraine's cause. The raiders also expressed their gratitude to the Ukrainian people and authorities for their hospitality and solidarity. They said they felt more at home in Ukraine than in Russia, where they said they faced persecution and oppression. The raiders' parade was widely covered by Ukrainian media and social media, where they received praise and admiration from many Ukrainians. However, some critics accused them of being reckless and irresponsible, and warned that their actions could escalate the conflict and trigger a full-scale war. Russia condemned the raid as a terrorist act and blamed Ukraine for supporting it. Russia said it had evidence that the raiders were trained and equipped by Ukrainian special forces, and that Kiev was behind the attack. Russia also said it had suffered no casualties or damage from the raid, which it said was repelled by its border guards. Russia demanded that Ukraine hand over the raiders and the captured vehicle, and threatened to retaliate if Kiev refused. Russia also warned that it would not tolerate any further violations of its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The raid raised tensions between Russia and Ukraine, which have been locked in a conflict since 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea and backed separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine. The two countries have amassed thousands of troops near their border in recent months, raising fears of a major war. The international community has called for restraint and dialogue between the two sides, and urged them to respect the 2015 Minsk agreements, which aimed to end the fighting and resolve the crisis peacefully. However, the agreements have been largely ignored by both parties, who accuse each other of violating them.